Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Tuesday talk. We are in the middle of November 2024. We're rounding out the end of the year here, so we've got a great conversation teed up for you this afternoon. I'm interviewing our CEO, Margaret Haynes. Margaret, thank you for joining us yet again today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so before we begin, I like to cover some housekeeping items here. For our listeners that have joined us live, we love it when you ask questions, and you do have the ability to do that by clicking the Q&A button. It's either at the top or bottom of your Zoom screen. Click on that button. You may have to expand your window a little bit. I just had to do that myself. And the box will pop up and you can type in a question. You can actually click the little anonymous box. We don't know what your name is, whether you want to be anonymous or not. We love audience participation and we welcome questions. So if at any time you have a question for Margaret, please do not hesitate to type in a question. I will make sure to get it asked over the course of the next 30 minutes. So, all right, let's get right into it. Margaret, how are you today?
I'm awesome. I'm
Okay,
awesome. And yourself?
great. Great. I'm awesome as well. Thank you. Okay, so I like to start with just general state of the union, if you will. So if you would please just provide an update to our listeners on, just like the state of the home care industry and how things are going generally right now.
Yeah, I feel like if you go back and watch some of the prior ones and how they start off, it probably sounds like a broken record, but it's a great record to listen to because things are going really well. So,
Mhm.
Right at Home Network as a whole is having a great 2024. We're finishing the year really strong. All of our metrics that we watch to keep our finger on the pulse of the health of the business and the industry at large is all very, very strong. So, we see increased number of distinct caregivers that are working each week for across the Right at Home network.
Mhm.
Hours are going up, distinct clients that are being serviced is going up, all of that. And we see our franchise owners. I just had the opportunity last week to spend some time with some of our California franchisees in a performance group. And we might talk about performance groups at some point over the next 30 minutes, but it was an opportunity just to sit and listen to them talk about what is top of mind for them and how are their business performing and what are some bright ideas of things that are working in their local market that others can take advantage of. All great things of why being part of this network and being part of a franchise system is so exciting. And what excites me is just spending time with those owners and hearing directly the things that are going on in their local markets. And they talk about things, like what are things that are keeping them up at night, or they call it a
Yep.
burning issue. And
Yep.
and each one's a little bit different, but it could be around getting enough caregivers. And so we talk a lot about best practices and how do you really make sure in that local market that you are that first call that a caregiver wants to make, or that first office that they want to walk through that front door when they want to work. They're like, I want to check with Right at Home first because they know me, they appreciate me, or they value me, all those things.
Yep.
Talk a lot about that. But so when I think about, gosh, as we're coming through the end of the year, we have had a great year. The system is outperforming what we expected it to do as we're kind of doing our planning every year. And then when I look to the future, it's amazing. We just are just on the cusp of so much opportunity out there. So we could go in lots of different directions in terms of talking about different topics today.
Yes. Okay. So I'm glad that you teed this up. You know how I do. I've got questions ready for you in advance,
Yeah.
just in case we don't have any listeners that type in a question. But I'm glad you brought this up. Performance groups, bright ideas, and burning issues. So that's where I would like to start. And really, I don't know if anybody has ever asked you this question in this way, but think through the lens of right at home corporate and think about all the things that you're doing to prepare for the future, 2025 and beyond. So if you could list just a couple bright ideas and even followed with a couple of burning issues, I actually know what they are because we talk about it all the time here at corporate headquarters. As I'm part of the strategic planning, I'm blessed to be part of that. But that's something that we talk about. We listen to our franchise owners, we listen to our system, we listen to the industry, we look at our competitors, we look at non-competitors, we look at what others doing. We watch, so many things. But let's talk about some of those bright ideas for the future and followed up with maybe some burning issues.
Yeah, so there's just so many bright ideas, and all those bright ideas as they come through the coaching network. So we have coaches that work with all the different franchise owners, and they also help facilitate these performance groups. Those bright ideas, if they are something that can be used, more broadly and aren't really specific to a local market, then a lot of times we build those into best practices. So we have like 12 different best practices that were created just this year, a lot around caregiver recruitment and retention
Mm.
that came out of bright ideas of top performing offices where they have very high employee engagement scores, high what we call ENPS scores, and satisfaction scores where, we're looking to see, what does someone feel like as being part of that local brand. One example from just last week was all around one of the bright ideas was how to engage with their local VA and how appropriate, right? Coming into Veterans Day just yesterday. Shout out to anybody that might be listening to this or that's on the call. If you've served our country or are taking care of someone who has served our country or someone in your family, thank you for that service. It's such an emotional day and just such a day of appreciation for those veterans that have served us.
Yes.
So this bright idea shared last week was around ways to go in and engage in the local market because so much of getting that message out there and identifying individuals in a local community is going to come from building those relationships. Home care is a very much a relationship based business model, right? And people like to do business with those that they know and they can engage with and they can feel the passion that we have around our mission, which is to improve the quality of life for those that we serve. So that's just one example of the right idea.
Yeah.
And then from a burning issues perspective, again, it's anything that might be keeping somebody up at night. And I mentioned caregivers early on, that in some cases, maybe they're looking to get more caregivers and they've got more demand of clients needing services and they don't have enough supply of the caregivers. And I mentioned the bright ideas that have been created around that. But one that came out, again, out of last week that was a burning issue was that their business had slowed and that the year wasn't turning out as they had set their goals of what they wanted to get accomplished. And as their peers were asking them, well, why is that? They said, I haven't been executing the fundamentals. And so we talked a lot about the executing the fundamentals. What are those fundamentals of the business model? All of which, as a new owner coming in, we're going to teach you those fundamentals of the things that you need to be doing and the key performance indicators that you can track to make sure that you're doing the activities that are going to bring value versus just being busy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then their group talked about, okay, how do you get back into executing those fundamentals and doing that, then being able to move your business in the right direction. So they use that time, which a performance groups gives you a time to work on your business versus just in your business.
Yep.
They took time to reset where they want to go and left more engaged and excited about, I understand what I need to get back to doing, out there engaging with my local community, and we'll see the benefits of that. So that's always exciting, because we all have ebbs and flows, but that's also why we've got such a great support structure. And what we at the corporate office think about every day is how do we help our franchisees build sustainable, profitable businesses?
Yes.
And so we have people that will help you through your highs of your highs and your lows of your lows and everything in between as you continue to build this great asset.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Margaret. And I want to echo what you said regarding Veterans Day, which was just yesterday. If anybody is listening, and if you are a veteran, thank you for your service, as well as, in the event that you become a right-at-home franchise owner, you may be serving, some veterans in your community. It just means so much to us, and we value you as a veteran as well as our, clients that are veterans. So, thank you for everything. And a couple of questions have come in since I have been, yapping. Here we go. Here's the first question.
Okay.
And I'll read it word for word. Does your operations manager attend the performance groups, or is it just the owner?
Yeah, so typically it is just the owner that will attend the performance group. And that's kind of defined in what we call the bylaws of the performance group, that they want to have owners there because they do talk about very sensitive information. So they're sharing with each other not only financial data, operational metrics, but things that are keeping them up at night, which could be maybe a personnel issue, right, in their local office, and trying to think through, gosh, have I outgrown maybe somebody as their business is starting to scale. So typically it is always the owner. If it's not an owner and they want to bring someone else, the bylaws generally say they have to have at least 25% ownership to sit in the room with them, because of some of that sensitive information that's there. But we have some owners now that are working through putting together their exit strategy, and they're planning to pass this great asset that they've built onto maybe their son or daughter. And so they're now starting to want to bring them into the performance groups as they're starting to engage. And that's something that each group can decide if they're okay with that. But generally, we like to make sure that it's owners that are sitting in that room for those really frank conversations that are happening.
Sure. Yep. Got it. Okay.
Great question.
Next question, also associated with performance groups. It says, are the majority of right-at-home owners in performance groups? What are the requirements for joining a performance group?
Yeah, another great question. So I probably don't have my percentage exactly right, but I think it's around 44%. And that sounds so exact, but that's the number that just popped in my head. So 40% that are in the performance groups today. We started this year at 11 groups, and we're going to end the year at 14, I believe. And then we have a plan to add 3 more groups next year. So we strongly believe, and I was here when we first brought performance groups into the network back in, 2012 is when we first started it. And we started the performance groups with our very top performing franchises. So we took those that have been in the system the longest, have grown, really big businesses, and put them in the groups to see if this brings value to tenured. Imagine what it could do for people throughout their entire journey. So since then, obviously, we've grown in the number of groups that are facilitated. And it's just, so how do you get in? So we'll start talking about performance groups right out of the gate. Even when a prospect is calling up franchise owners, odds are they're going to catch somebody that says, yeah, I'm in a performance group, and talk about the value of that. But then their business coach or their Right Start coach is also going to be talking about performance groups and getting them prepared. Part of the performance group is that you're benchmarking your data with your peers. And in order to have your data, we typically are doing a year data. So we want you to have kind of a year under your belt, because they also take 2 times throughout the year where they get together face to face versus through a Zoom on a quarterly call.
Yep.
That means you got to be able to walk away from your business. Now there's still calls when they need to, but you got to walk away for a couple of days to just work on it and not in it.
Yep.
Recognize as a new owner coming in, or even if you're taking over an existing, like a resell, you probably want to get your legs under you a little bit. So by a year, we're going to be tapping on your shoulder and saying, we really think you need to be in a performance group, because I will tell you that the performance groups, when we look at that group versus the rest of the network, they outperform the rest of the network. And a logical question might be, well, then why don't you require it? But we can't require someone to be in a performance group. Because you have to be wanting to walk in and share information and be able to be open and honest about, here's the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on in my business at the moment, and having others help you kind of be held accountable. And in some cases, people aren't ready for that. We'll work hard to get you ready for it and really encourage you to do it and take that leap, because we know it's going to pay off for you. But in some cases, it's just not for everybody. Sure. So we recognize that.
Okay. Got it. All right. Thank you. And to rewind, before these questions came up, I was talking about Veterans Day. And the reason why I brought up Veterans Day is because we had an election just before Veterans Day. So I do want to address or ask you the question, given we just had this election, we have a new president taking over January of next year. How do you see the future of home care evolving? And how is Right at Home preparing for it? And any impacts given this recent election that you want to address as we look at the future of home care and Right at Home?
Yeah, so certainly going into the election, so going into last Tuesday, both candidates, so Vice President Harris and former President Trump, they both had come out within, 30 days prior to the election, maybe it was 45 days, bringing up home care and recognizing the value of home care and talking about it. And to us,
Yep.
as part of the industry, and so I sit on the board, I actually chair the board right now for the Home Care Association of America, or HCAOA is what it's commonly referred to as. And that's our big industry association where we advocate on behalf of the entire industry. So we saw that as a win. So just having both potential candidates talking about home care leading into the election was a great win, because we've got to keep advocating for it, because what we do helps take off the pressure on those entitlement programs, the Medicare side and the Medicaid side of things. And so we come alongside and certainly play nice with those entitlement programs and want clients that are using our services to take advantage of all the resources that are available to them. But we need home care to help with this aging population and take some of the pressure off of our healthcare system that, quite frankly, isn't prepared structurally and financially to support this aging population that's coming. So when I think about the future, and so now thinking about, okay, President Trump is the winner of the election. Either candidate, has different opinions about business regulation and how much government should be involved in business or not. And so that's all different things. And whether it's a Democrat in the top seat or it's a Republican in the top seat, every presidency, we have changes in rules and regulations.
Sure.
So we're very active in monitoring what's going on from an association perspective. We also have, a team member here at the corporate office. We coined him DC Doug Robertson, that keeps track of what's happening out there from a federal perspective and the different things that might be getting proposed. And from an HCAOA perspective, we're very involved in wanting to have a seat at the table on anything that's going to touch our industry. But we're also watching things that just touch small business. So when I think about moving into now 4 years under President Trump, he tends to be pro-business. I think that's a good thing from a small business owner, as I think about individuals deciding, gosh, do I want to jump in and start my own business? So I think we'll see regulation that will be supportive of that. In healthcare, I think everybody, regardless of who's sitting and whether the House or the Senate, what their majority party is, doesn't really matter. We all need to solve this healthcare issue and how to make it affordable. So I think there's lots of great opportunity in front of us to be at the table, but we also want to do it at the local level. So we do look to our franchisees in each state to be really active in their states or in their local governments, to also be constantly talking about home care and the value, and even inviting them in to come visit, a client that you're servicing and give them an opportunity to see what is this thing that we're really talking about. Because unless they have an aging parent or, aunt or uncle or whoever, you don't really get it until you need it. And the more we can let our elected officials know about it. But I view the future positive. And whatever changes happen from a regulatory perspective, what we do know is over next year, we'll celebrate 30 years as a brand and 25 years in franchising. Whatever is thrown at us, we find a way to go over, under it, through it, around it, in a way that continues to support the growth of the network and being able to live out our mission.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you for that. So this next question I've asked you before, and I pretty much ask everyone this question really before we wrap up, but I'm going to put a little bit of a twist on it this time. Okay, so what's one unconventional piece of advice you'd give to someone considering franchising with Right at Home? So try to think of answers that you've given before, and maybe try to think of something a little bit outside of the box.
Oh gosh, you are really so one kind of unconventional advice when they're trying to decide if they want to,
Yep. Considering franchising.
So my advice would be, and I don't think I've given this before, ground yourself and spend some time thinking about your loved ones and how you would like to be taken care of as you age through the process. That'll be easier for some people, depending upon where they are in their aging process
Yeah.
versus others. And certainly we have owners that are all different age ranges, but I think my perspective now, as I think about aging and how I want that to look versus how I might have answered that 20 years ago is very different.
Hmm.
But if you think about that and then say, and am I passionate about creating that experience for others? Because
Yes.
at the end of the day, that's what you're going to be doing, right? Is starting a business in a community where you have the opportunity to do some amazing things. But that passion should be there around how can I emulate the experience that I want to have. And I always say that, if we could figure out a way to make home care cool, right? If we could make aging, like people are like, I cannot wait for that next birthday. I cannot wait until I just get older and I have more wrinkles. I have more. Nobody's doing that, right?
Yep.
If you think about how can I make an experience that you would like as aging, thinking about that, I think might help you decide, am I passionate about it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a great answer. And even in
Oh,
my
thank
own
you.
brain, I'm thinking about like, as I age and, how would I want to be cared for and what does that experience look like? And do I want to be that person that provides that, best
Yeah,
in class care and that great experience, because if you become a right-at-home franchise owner, that's exactly what you're doing,
right.
treat others as you would want to be treated. So that's a great way to put it and a different way to think about it for somebody who's thinking about joining right at home.
Well, good. I'm glad that
Okay,
was.
great answer. Okay, so another question that I've never asked you before. I want to incorporate more fun questions for you, Margaret, get you thinking outside of the box. So somebody asked me this question once, and I wanted to take the opportunity to ask you as well. So, what is one myth about the aging population that you want to completely debunk? So, maybe while you're thinking about it, let me tell you what my answer was, and you can kind of think along the lines of. So it was an easy answer for me, and it has to do with loneliness and isolation. It's a myth that as you age, gracefully and wherever you call home, that loneliness and isolation is inevitable.
Right.
With right at home, that's a very simple solution. It's not guaranteed. It doesn't have to be that way. I do think that's a myth with the aging population is as you age, it's just you're going to be lonely, you're going to have isolation, and that isn't the case. It's a myth because there is a resource to help with that. There is that resource in right at home and partnering with right at home and hiring a right at home caregiver and becoming a right at home franchise owner is something that you absolutely can help with the
Mhm.
aging population is really helping with that isolation and loneliness. It's
Mhm.
not inevitable. It's not a fact. It's something that people think, okay, that's just the way it's going to be, which I think couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah, no, that's a really great answer. And when as you were asking me that and thinking about myths, I mean, there's lots of myths out there and a lot of ageism that's out there.
Hmm.
I think about like even with my own folks. So I think a myth is that as you get older, um, you can't do anything anymore. You don't have any value, right? Now all of a sudden you're the kid to your kids, and that kind of role reversal, and that
Yep.
the kids got to do everything for you. And I think that's a myth too. And I think it was something that was really eye-opening for me with my mom. So Right at Home came in and helped take care of her. She had Alzheimer's. And then I went through the Dementia Live training, that kind of has you put on the goggles and the gloves and kind of have you start and the headphones,
Yep.
kind of experience what someone with dementia would experience in terms of the noise and trying, and why they can sometimes get agitated. I mean, it was eye opening. But I think we also have a specific program around supporting people with cognitive issues, right? That
Hmm.
we can train our franchisees about and they can use in training their caregivers and whatnot. And I think what I love about the myth is, the caregiver is going to come in and they do everything for the client. The caregiver's coming in to come alongside that client and let the client focus on what their abilities are, not their disabilities. And so with what they're able to do, then let's bring the caregiver alongside to help with those other things that maybe are just a little bit harder. You
Yep.
know, I was just over visiting my aunt yesterday. She's 97. And as she's right at home is going to start taking care of her because she's now having to use a walker. She's not eating as well because she can't take her hands off to do the cooking. So right at home's going to come in and do some light cooking and companionship, and otherwise she could move around fine. So I think it's that myth that, oh, as you get older, you know, you just, someone's got to come take care of you. And it's like, no, you'll still have things that you're able to do. And then the beauty is you can bring someone else alongside that can help you with those other things.
Yes. Okay. Also another great answer. Thank you for that. Okay, we've got just 5 minutes left, and so I do want to end with similar to a question that I asked you earlier, but more of a conventional answer. But for our listeners, and you know the audience that's watching this or listening to this, they're thinking about joining the Right at Home system. And as you know, it's a very big step, you know, becoming a business owner, whether you have been a business owner before or this is your first time being a business owner, whether you have experience in this field or not, it's still a pretty scary thing. You know, becoming an entrepreneur in a business that you've never been part of before. So any piece of advice that you can give to somebody watching this or listening to this right now, who's considering joining Right at Home and maybe helping with making that decision and some things that they need to think about before they make that decision?
Yeah, so I think you know, my unconventional answer, I would go back to and just saying, you know, what are you passionate about?
Yep.
I think, you know, when you think about this leap of going into business for yourself, the great thing with a franchise network and Right at Home is you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So that's wonderful. We've got all these resources. But so one, you know, what are you passionate about, and is this something that you're passionate about? Because you're gonna put a lot of time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears right
Sure.
into this business. So it should be something that you're really passionate about, that you really want to focus on improving the quality of life for those that we serve. So then if you've got the passion, then are you open to using the resources around you? So are you a complete maverick and you're like, you know what, I'm the smartest person in the room and I know how to do all this stuff, and you know, I'm kind of a loner? Then I would say this may not be the right choice, because there's so much value that comes from
Yes.
being part of a franchise network. And so you know, every person that comes in is very smart and brings lots of experience. And even if you don't have experience in this industry, which most don't, that shouldn't keep you from taking the leap,
Yeah.
because you've got this infrastructure. But I'm always miffed, although it doesn't happen very often, because we talk a lot about all the support that we provide. Individuals that come in and they're like, okay, the minute I've signed that paperwork, I'm going to do my thing. And it's like, okay, but we're here to help you be successful.
Yeah.
And engagement does equate to success. And so, you know, are you looking for a network that can help elevate you, along with you certainly, you know, being your own, you know, driving your own company and being your own boss, and that there's some excitement about that for a lot of our owners. But I think passion, and then wanting to then say, let's take advantage of all the things that are available, and then let's just build a wildly successful business.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate you, and I know our listeners do as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much for doing this today, Margaret.
Oh yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. I always appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, great. Until next time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Okay, goodbye.